Yo, what's going on, guys? Excuse the throat clearings, any coughing that I have. I am still recovering from black mold. I didn't know that was a big deal. I had an idea, but I didn't know it was that serious. So I've just been monitoring my lung capacity for this last week. It's been ups and downs. Some days I cough a lot, sometimes I don't cough at all. Sometimes I cough so much that I get lightheaded or get nauseous. So I apologize in advance, but it's been nice. I had to take time off of work. I had to kind of stop everything and just relax in order for me to feel even 80%. And it was weird because it wasn't like I was sick, right? Like I didn't feel like I couldn't do stuff. And that was the problem, is like I felt like I could do stuff, and then I would go and do stuff, and then my lung capacity chest was just like, yeah, no, it's not going to happen. So got some stuff done, but for the most part, I played the role of a mediocre 30-year-old with no aspirations, which was in itself very difficult for me because I like to do shit. I like being out and running around and building and doing things. And even this walk is taking a little bit of more energy than I would like. So yeah, I just wanted to hop on, let everybody know I appreciate all the well wishes. I appreciate everybody checking in on me. They haven't found a way to kill me yet, which is good. I think God still has some pretty major plans for me. Had a lot of time to sit with my own thoughts, a lot of time to sit and just watch, just observe the world, social media, without being a purveyor, a provocateur of content and concept. And it's interesting, and I put it on my story today as well. Jack Donovan, he posted something that kind of clicked my head on, which is the coaching environment is just super heavily oversaturated. And being relatively new to coaching, I did a 7-year case study where I helped as many people as possible with confidence and all this stuff. But I've only been coaching for a year in this space with confidence and helping men figure out what they want in life and developing self-respect and things of that nature. But once I decided to go public and start doing these things, the 90-day coach was just super prevalent, super predominant, where it's just everybody's a coach. Everybody has a program. Everybody has a video series. Everybody has, exactly. Everyone's an expert. And, so I posted that to my story just a moment ago, just kind of like my thoughts on it. But the reality is that everyone is a fucking expert. It's true. Everyone is an expert, but that doesn't mean you should be guiding other fucking people. Like, it doesn't mean, I don't know, you get, the reality is that there's a low barrier of entry to coaching. And on top of that low barrier of entry, you have a lot of people, a lot of salespeople, a lot of social media, quote unquote, experts. You have a lot of advertising gurus. Will get you to 6 figures in 30 days or whatever the fuck. And so people jump on that because they honestly are fucking miserable. And so because they're miserable, they're like, you know what'll help my life? I'm going to coach other people on how to be miserable like me. I don't really understand the impetus, but that's how it predominantly comes across. And that's how I've engaged with other coaches. And so there's this, and I said it on there too, it's like a participation trophy. Like there's this, I've never gone this way, let's go this way. There's this predominantly interesting dynamic that happens where you get into coaching and then you see how many fucking coaches there are, of which there are fucking amount, like as many stars are in the sky, there are fucking coaches. But there's like this entitlement that like, I decided today I'm going to be a coach and therefore I'm going to have, 250 people in a fucking coaching group. Oh, hi, dog. 250 people in a coaching group. Fucking, I'm going to have, 6 figures a month. Coach. It's like, dude, like, why'd you get into it? You don't even know what the fuck you're doing. Like, you don't even know what you're trying to accomplish. You don't know what you're trying to elicit with people. Exactly, a money grab. And it's interesting to me because, like, I truly want to change the world. I want to help people. I want to see people come to a point where they're at their level of fruition. And then you talk to people and they're like, oh, I'm a coach too. And you're like, oh, great, you're a coach too. Like, let's talk about that. And then you realize they're not a fucking coach. They're just somebody who knew a little bit more in their neighborhood. And somebody close to them was like, oh, yo, you would be a great coach. All right. So when you start talking with them, the conversations are very different. And one thing that I'd say here is, like, if you have a coach whose entire resume, identity, and construct is contingent on them being a coach, they're not a coach. They're just somebody, they're a charlatan. They're somebody who's trying to get something from you. Again, I've said this before too, if your coach hides behind quotes and kitschy cliches and, things that they pawned off of a podcast or whatever, right? Like, they've picked that stuff up for themselves and they're just pawning it off. Now, that being said, there's nothing new under the sun. So you're not going to get fucking, the Iliad out of a fucking coach. Like, you're just not. But at the same time, you want to have a certain level of, feet in the fire, as it were. Have multiple careers and life experiences before saying you're a coach. And within the same space, right? Like I don't know how to fucking underwater basket weave, right? Like, I could figure it out. I could watch a YouTube video on how to underwater basket weave and do all this stuff, but that doesn't mean I'm a coach, right? Like, I knew what you meant and I just read it. Careers, yeah. And that's the thing, is like this entitlement of, like, because your parents don't understand the stock market, and so you tell them one or two things, they're like, you should coach people on how to be a stock market guru. It's like, it's not how it works. You gotta dedicate some time and some intensity to it. You have to prove out those theories, right? And there's a difference between the anecdotal coach, right, who has life experiences and stories and can tell you why it is that way, right? They can say, okay, like, yeah, you could do it that way, but the reason we don't do it that way is because this occurs, and I was over here this one time and this is what happened. Versus the theoretical coach. They read it in a book somewhere, right? And this is something we see as a problem with college career students moving into an inexperienced job market, and especially in, like, technical fields, IT fields, right? They theoretically know how to do the work. They've read it somewhere, they heard about it somewhere, but at the end of the day, they have no fucking idea how it actually applies to the real world, how it actually works in a real world experience. And so this is one of the areas that I feel most men's groups fall short in general, and an area that I often talk about, something that I want to correct within my space, is less talking, more doing. Men by nature are very hands-on. We're very kinetic. We don't learn very well just listening and then applying. We need to do it. We need to functionally do it and set ourselves to do it before we feel confident that we can do it. And yet, knowing that the pathology and neurology of men and our learning styles and our capacity for retaining and developing new skill sets is a very tactile thing. You look at the space in general of men's forums, men's speaking gigs, men's masterminds. It's all effeminate in the sense that it's all, let me talk at you for 3 days and that's it. I'm just going to talk. I'm just going to tell you how the world works. I'm just going to tell you how I think you should live. And then I want you, trusting that I know what I'm talking about, to go out and trust yourself to do that. Well, the gap in that is that one, it may have worked for that person, but it's going to work wholly different for another person. And because they don't have the ins and outs of the life experience, they're not going to be able to curtail. Oh, very much. Yeah, public school is definitely, that's a whole other topic. But yeah, public school has definitely ruined men's ability to research or develop curiosity within an academic space. Because what most men see today is what public schools did, which was, we want you to be a drone that can sit at a desk for 8 hours. And we're going to shame you out of being energetic. We're going to shame you out of being kinetic. And we're going to use women, not making them an enemy. This is just what public schools do. They use women as a force feedback system to say, oh, well, Susie can do it. Why can't you do it, Michael? If Susie can do it, you can do it. So they shame them out of really seeking knowledge. And that's one thing that I learned of myself growing up. Like, I was very energetic. I grew up in a very poor household. We were homeless a lot of times. So I really didn't give two fucks about school. What I cared about was, I want to be the smartest motherfucker that I could be, and the strongest motherfucker that I could be, so that I would never have to be homeless again. Like, that was all I fucking cared about. Like, I just wanted to work and to be the smartest person. And because of that, I became very enamored with learning and being curious all the time. But I hated school. So anyway, I digress. So what ends up happening is, you have all these people that come out of these spaces in coaching, and somebody close to them, somebody that in their counsel told them, oh, you'd be a great coach. And then they just assume they're just going to pick up a phone like this and go live and be like, I'm a coach now. And they're just going to go after it. And then you find people, that come through and understand, like many, in almost every vertical, there's somebody that has been there for 10, 15, 20, 25 years working, legitimately working in that space, boots on the ground. And one of the areas that, sorry, I got off topic because of that comment, but I appreciate it. One of the areas that I really try to focus on with it when it's King's Calling, or it's my workshops, or it's, my group, tactical, functional, evidence-based things that you could take away and actually go do and implement. And then at the events and the workshops is getting hands-on. Like, I don't just go out there and be like, all right, guys, you got to be a fucking protector and be a badass and fucking be 007 Jason Bourne and go fuck people up. Like, no, I go, listen, violence is fucking scary. If you've never been in a violent altercation, it's going to be scarier. It's exhausting. The next day you feel like you got hit by a fucking truck. Here's how to avoid these things. Here's what to expect. All right, now we're going to try that out. So like at last King's Calling, we had a Marcus Torgerson come out, phenomenal fucking teacher, super patient with us. And we went over tactics for if a person pulls a gun on you, if a person pulls a knife on you, what that experience is going to look like, what kind of aggression you need to raise to, what kind of experience you need to have, what kind of situational awareness you need to have. It wasn't just like, oh, so this guy's going to do this, and then you're just going to fucking McDojo it and fucking go. And now, there you go. Now you're a Billy Badass. You can go and fucking take on guys with guns. doesn't work that way. You got to put them in a situation. You have to teach them all the ins and outs of it. And you can't do that sitting here talking on a computer or a screen or Zoom. And so that's why I'm very big on our events, and I'm very like hands-on, and I want everybody to be very hands-on, because at the core of it, men are kinetic. We could talk all day. We could read dissertations and third-party reviews, and we can read philosophy books, and we can read like legends and things like that. But until we actually go and experience those things to our own degree, whatever that looks like, we have no capacity for comparison. We have no way of moving into a leadership position. And the sad thing, back to your original or your other statement of like schools ruined education for men, is like, the sad thing is we put them in a rat race for 18 years, then put them at a job for another 50 years. But 20 years into their life, we're like, hey, go get a wife, go have children, and lead your own tribe. Enjoy. And then the guys are like, how the fuck do I do that? And we've had 3 to 5 generations in some cases who have never been taught how to lead. They've never been taught how to step into the role as father. They've never been taught how to step into the role as man. They've never been taught how to protect and provide. They've never been taught how to manage money or build a business. And we're just like, well, better go do it. And then when they can't, we're like, oh, you're a terrible fucking man. Okay, well, nobody fucking taught him. Of course he's a fucking terrible guy. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, if you've never been taught and you've never been hands-on, you can watch as many YouTube videos as you want. It's not going to translate well to the real world, because every situation is going to be different. And there's a phrase that I absolutely love that I've used a long time, which is learn the rules so well that you know which ones you can break and which ones you can't. And a lot of people, especially with this idea that people have today, where it's like, oh, I need to be rebellious, I need to be an outlaw, I need to be a gangster or whatever. Like, Al Capone knew the law better than fucking anybody. Like, all the mobsters knew the law better than fucking anybody, because they needed to know when they were getting called on some bullshit or not. And so in order for you to be able to be a sovereign man and things like that, you have to be able to move around those rules, because you have to know what they are. You have to know how to handle them in a way so that at the end of the day, when somebody comes at you, you can pick them apart meticulously, not emotionally. A lot of guys think that, you know, when people come at you, you need to be aggressive, which is true. You need to have a certain level and degree of aggression, but it doesn't have to be emotional. You don't have to be like, oh, I'm so fucking angry because he called me this and I'm not. Well, no, you need to be meticulous, and you need to be calculated, and you have to have discernment on when you would integrate those things into your life and not. And you can't get that at a textbook. You can't get that from getting talked at it like these masterminds or whatever. Anyway, I got off on a tangent, but that's the problem with a lot of these coaches too, right? Is like, they've lived in this virtual world for so long. A lot of guys in their 20s now coming up being coaches, like, they didn't have a childhood of scratching their knees, climbing trees, fucking playing army with your buddies. Like, they didn't have any of that shit. All they had was, I'm gonna get on the computer, I'm gonna play video games with my boys, we're gonna play Call of Duty, and and that's my life. So now they get to adulthood and they found like a little niche of something maybe they know, maybe something people think that they know more than them, and they're like, you should tell people, you should get on social media and fucking tell everybody that. It's like, yeah, well, no wonder you guys have imposter syndrome, no wonder you guys have fucking fears and doubts. You have no idea what the fuck you're doing, because you haven't actually tested any of it in the real world. You've just kind of sat in the virtual world and is like, this sounds good, we should fucking do this. And so, you know, as a coach and as a person who, and I hate the word coach personally, but seeks to guide and seeks to help. Yeah, 100%. A knight with shining armor has never had to test his metal, and it's true. And that's what we have, right? Like, a lot of the coaches that you have are knights in shining armor, and that's literally how they get away with the things that they're getting away with. That's how this white knight syndrome and victim mentality go hand in hand. So what I mean by that is like, it's no secret that in today's world, most people have cultivated or have had cultivated for them this idea that they're owed something. They have this mentality of blame everything else, take no accountability. It's victimhood. So you have that, right? You have that socially accepted across the board. You have all these guys out there who have been taught that mommy will clean up their mess, daddy will clean up their mess, and they don't have to fucking do anything. Enter white knight. Hey, bro, you're really good at that. You should probably fucking coach. And so they go, oh, fuck. Like, I can make money just doing what I like to do and just doing what I want. Who wouldn't run at that? Okay, cool. So you have these coaches who are like, hey, make 6 figures in 90 days being a coach. And all you got to do is post once a day. Be on social media. You'll be fine. Okay, cool. So then these victimhood guys get on and they fucking start doing that, right? They're like, I'm a fucking coach. And everybody's like, I'm a coach. I'm a coach. I'm a coach. Cool. What do you coach? I'm a life coach. Okay. The fuck does that mean? What are you helping me with? I'll help you with your life. Okay. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm just a life coach. We'll talk and I'll help you out. Okay. So the people are like, all right, cool. Well, so then fast forward 3 months, 6 months, a year later, they're like, oh, I didn't make 6 figures a month, let alone 6 figures in the first year. This is all bullshit. This is all bullshit. Like, it's bullshit. No, what it is you're not a man of your word. What I mean by that is when you say you're a coach, you don't prove it. You don't put your nuts on the chopping block and say, fuck it. If I'm wrong, smash them. Never once. You'll never find a coach like that who fails the way that these guys fail. Like, you just won't. Because the reality is, and I've talked about this before too, like, you can't hide behind statues and whisper. Basically, you can't be disconnected from your content to mitigate all your risk, because the reality is, like, putting yourself out there, putting your ideologies out there, it's a risk. It's an ego hit. And I think that's why a lot of people like more emotionally driven guys. Like Andy Frisella. Fucking love Andy Frisella. When I first started, that was my dude. Like, he got me through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of bullshit. And it was his passion, right? But over time, it was just anger. It was just like, he was just angry. And that's cool. Like, I'm not bashing him at all. He brings so much fucking value to the market. It's ridiculous. But what I realized is that I don't like doing that. Like, I don't like getting on here and, like, ranting and, like, having emotional, like, blow-ups. And the thing is, that's what most people are looking for. They want you to hop on here, cry a little bit, yell a bit, like, show the emotional side. And I don't see the point in that. It works for a lot of guys, and it definitely works when you're in the beginning and everybody's scared to post the honest truth, right? And then you get Andy coming out of the back room like, fuck you, fuck this, I'm the motherfucking CEO. Like, of course that sounds cool, like, but that fucking horse is gone. Like, all these guys trying to copy that now, and like, I'm a coach just like Andy Frisella. Like, it worked for Andy because he had credibility. It worked for Andy because he had shit that he built. He had life experiences that he had gone through and edified himself with. He fucking made 7 figures before he ever started that shit. And most of the good coaches are like that. I'm not at that level. I'm 6 figures here, but that's the reality, right? Like, I could get on here and I could be overly emotional, and I could, get on here and be like, fuck the government and fuck whatever, right? Recent conversations, fuck the WEF. Like, I could get on here and I could do that. And it might help some people feel accepted, right? Like, maybe they live in San Francisco and they're a conservative and they're ostracized from all their people. Right? Like that stuff may help resonate them. And that's fucking great. And I am not knocking anybody that does it. Yeah, Ed, Sean, Seth, like, I follow all those guys. I fucking love every single one of them. Like, I am not bashing anybody. It just doesn't work for me. What I want to do is I want to bring tactics. I want to bring shit that I know works. That like, but here's the irony of it. I said that early on, like last year sometime. I was like, I'm going to keep it super unemotional and just like detached and like just say what is truth, right? And the reality is, and this is where I kind of had my epiphany, like with like those other gentlemen, like they probably just got fucking tired of stupidity. Like they didn't set out to be angry. Like the world gives you a lot to be fucking angry about. And it gets frustrating because you can tell, you lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. And you can tell somebody the same fucking thing 100 times over and they will fuck off, not listen and do something else, come up with excuses and then blame you. It's like, that's not what I told you to do. Oh, it's like, that's not what I told you to do. Like, I told you to do that. Yeah, but you didn't do it. Yeah, I did it and it didn't work. So I quit. All right. Well, then you didn't fucking do it. Right. I'm ranting again. But yeah, like for me, the whole thing with like coaching and stuff is funny because when I was like, I'm going to be a coach. I had everybody come out of the woodwork. You should do it this way. You should take this program. You should reach out to this person. They could get you to this many followers. They can get you to this much engagement. And I remember thinking, yeah, I could, right? Like I could. But then what does that say about my product, right? Like what does that say about like what I'm offering? If I have to go to these guys and be like, hey, help me do this faster, does that show instead that the product is worse, right? Like that the product doesn't work, or that my coaching is wrong, or that I'm lazy, right? Like my character is like probably the number one thing that I focus on. If you know me personally, like I saw Luke on here. Luke knows how hardcore I am about like my word is my fucking bond. Like my character can't be assassinated. So I do everything in my power to audit myself and work through those things. So like when I started seeing all these people, there was a lot of like pressure, right? There was a lot of pressure because it's a saturated space and you have an entire support vertical industry for coaches. Like coaches is big business. Exactly. Word is the only thing you have. It's the only thing that can't take from you, and it's the only thing you give willingly and you won't get back willingly. So like a lot of people think that like the saturated coach market is in itself a saturated market, but there's these tertiary verticals that come into play that make big money off of getting people like amped up on being a coach, right? Like the guys that sell 6 figures in 90 days, or the guys that sell Instagram social media tips, or the guys that sell, website hosting, podcast editing. Like there's huge money in all of that. And so of course you want to have all these people come on that are amped and are like, oh, you have something to say? Let me give you a platform to say it. Cool. Like I'm all for that. That's called free enterprise. But once you set yourself to it, the problem that I have is that most of these guys are being told they can be successful in 3 months. They could be successful in a year. And the guys I follow, like Andy Frisella, Sean Whalen, Seth Feroce, Ed Milet, like Jack Donovan, like I mentioned at the beginning of this call, like they didn't fucking do this shit in 3 months. These guys were the pioneers of their fields, of their various industries, as either podcasters or speakers or coaches or whatever the fuck they're doing. And so there wasn't a vertical sustaining it, right? And that's why I liked what Jack Donovan said. I feel uncomfortable just saying his first name. I just know him from his books. I don't know him personally. So Mr. Donovan, he said it's a ritual. Social media has become a ritual. And that's true about coaching. Like, coaching has become a ritual in itself, because behind adding a new coach, some wide-eyed teenager, or 20-year-old or 30-year-old, maybe even a 60-year-old, who doesn't really know what they're trying to do, and they've just been told that he could be a good coach because maybe they're articulate and they know a little bit more than the person next to them. There's this whole other vertical there, mooching off that process. And I liken it very much to Hollywood, right? Like, Hollywood is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And the theatrics goes a long way for making it big, right? But the reality is, not even talking about all this insidious stuff that happens, I'm not even going to go there, but just the idea of a wide-eyed 18-something-year-old going out to Hollywood to make their mark, and like that whole concept. I would liken the coaching space or the influencer space or the social media space to the new Hollywood, right? Like, because you now have a substrata vertical that is there specifically to pick off these people who are wide-eyed but maybe don't want to put the time in. Maybe they're a little lazier, maybe they're a little more entitled, maybe they just, like you said, the long process, maybe they don't like the long process, right? Like, and it's a dichotomy. And I talked about it in my post today, like, influencing, whether you want to be an influencer or just influence, which I do make a crowbar separation there. Like, there is a dichotomy between the reality of what you're trying to teach and the theatricality of what you're trying to teach, because yeah, they don't have the hair on their balls to be coaches. I agree with you. And so when you look at it from the space of like, okay, there's the reality of what you're trying to teach as a coach has to be met with entertainment. Like, I'm not an entertaining guy. Like, people enjoy talking to me, and I could talk at length about fucking a plethora of topics, but I'm not like fucking song and dance guy. Like, I'm not I don't know. I don't find that, I don't go out of my way to be overtly entertaining, right? Like, I don't do fucking TikTok dances. I don't do fucking reels trends. And I've been told many, many times that's a poor business decision. And I would probably agree with that, because the algorithm is built to leverage these tools in a very specific way. And as you see, you know, the guys who put the 10, 15 years in, Andy Frisella's, Jack Donovan's, Ed Milet, Sean Whalen's, as their empire grows, they have the afforded privilege of being able to do those things without compromising their personal character or their level of theatricality that they're willing to do, because they now have a team behind it. It's no longer just one guy. Like, with me, it's just me and one other, and we do everything here as Veritas, and we do everything that's, you know, what I'm trying to accomplish, my ultimate and large long-term vision. And for the first year, it was just me. So as you build and as you grow and people find you and learn, you play the long process, your decisions can shift a little bit from being value add content only, content heavy, to where you let the cream rise to the top and you have the things that you believe and the things you want to help people with and you want to teach people. And it can lean more towards theatricality, right? It can get more into the fancy moving videos and joke things, right? Like, because now you have more heads in the brain trust, you have more hands in the pot, you have more things that you can do, and you've already set your trademark, right? And Luke, you and I have talked about this a number of times. The trademark, like, whether you like it or not, you as an individual, you as a man, you as a person has a trademark. And unfortunately, the nihilistic viewpoint that we have as a society today is that your trademark doesn't hold weight. It doesn't matter. Just have fun, do what's good for you, fuck everybody, get mine. That whole mentality, it is in effect, and I don't know if it's intentional or not, but socially it seems intentional to rob a man of his trademark so that he cannot stand on the weight of his own pillars that he has built himself, he has to instead be edified by others. And that, again, creates the extra verticals that you have. So as you're interacting with people and you're like, this going back to the original rant of like being a coach, like I would never dissuade somebody who truly feels that they want to do something. But once you realize it's not for you, fucking bow out gracefully. Like, don't try and keep hitting your head against that fucking wall. Like, I know, excuse me, I know at least 15 coaches within the last year that I've come across and met. And they're, fuck it, I'm trying to be too nice. Their content didn't allow for growth. Because the reality is that their content, in general, like these specific coaches, they didn't have enough lifetime experience to really leverage the knowledge or edify themselves. And so within a year, like within a year, these 15 people I saw start, flail, flounder, blame, and then bow out, burning a bunch of fucking bridges. And it was pretty fucking great. Hey, sheep. It was pretty cool to watch because, like, I don't know, like for me, watching pathologies flare and fall is interesting. And watching people walk into a space that you're in and struggling with, right? Like the beginning, everybody struggles. There's other people that have been doing it a lot longer. You have to find your place within that niche, within that space, whatever that niche is. It doesn't matter what it is. It's all the same. So watch these people do that and then like quite literally burn bridges, burn their own trademark because they felt entitled to more success. Like that's ultimately what it came down to. Like they're like, I'm going to be a coach. And then they expected to be making fucking 9 figures within the first year. And then when that didn't happen, they just fucking blamed everybody. And people that like went out of their way to help them, people that went out of their way to support them, got them connected to big circles of people, like they let their ego take over and they were like, fuck you. Like, you hurt me, you burned me, you're the reason I didn't succeed. And then they got called on it. They're like, no, like, I showed you the door, bro. Like, all you had to do was fucking capitalize and open it. Like, and you didn't. So that's not on me. And so what they ended up doing is if they ever do want to come back into a coaching space within that same vertical or niche, there's a high probability their trademark is going to precede them. Their character is going to precede them. And they're going to have a harder time. Because they're going to have a harder time, they're effectively starting further back in the pack. And so like for me, like I communicate and share on my stories, like how I feel about being in this space and my own insecurities about being the new guy in this space, being a young guy. I'm only 33 within this space, which seems to be pretty on par. Maybe just rationalizing for my own ego, but seems pretty on par with the guys that started, 10, 15 years ago. We have enough life under our belt to see a problem, identify a problem, have a solution, have enough life experience to solve, but also aren't so set in our ways or old or aged to feel that we have all the answers, and therefore we don't seek counsel. And so that seems to be kind of like a sweet spot, like early 30s to early 40s. It seems to be a sweet spot that I've seen with a lot of the more function-based or so evidence-based coaching systems. But I don't know how I got on this rant. I really appreciate you guys that hung in there. But I think the biggest thing is with the whole coaching space is like, don't rush it. Like, so many people want to rush everything. And I'm guilty of this. I think everybody's guilty of this at some point when you see other people's successes and you want to eventually see that success for yourself. And like I tell my closest, like, I have a vision for the future of where I want to get. I have a vision for what I know will occur, because I am a dog with a bone. I don't quit, and I'm always growing, always learning, always expanding. That sometimes I get overly excited about that vision because I can see it so clearly. It doesn't occur to me that I'm the only one that could see that vision that clearly. And so sometimes I get ahead of myself and I fucking run when I should be walking or maybe even crawling in different areas. And so, like, don't rush shit. Like put your ego down, understand that you're new, you're trying to get into it. If this is really what you want, test out shit. Like, I test shit. Like, I test fucking everything. I test the ranting, I test the calm, more like direct, strategic approaches. I test all that stuff. Like, it's all a test. Because if, like, number one, like, hands down, number one issue that I deal with clients is I don't want to look stupid. Like, that's like hands down one of the number one issues that people tell me. I don't want to look stupid. And it's like, well, you look stupid when you are stupid. Like, and if you're not trying stuff, then you're not learning. So you'll remain stupid. And that's just the reality. Like, that's across the board. Like, I have no problem looking stupid. The reason that I have no problem looking stupid, and my buddy Adrian told me this years and years ago, probably 15 years ago now, is the people that care don't matter, and the people that matter don't care. And the truth behind that statement has carried me through a lot of bullshit. Because when you develop your tribe, let me back up. When you develop yourself first, because society has it backwards. Most people look for a tribe to develop themselves, which is wrong, which is why most people have so much drama and issues and problems with people that they're surrounded with, because they spend so much time trying to cultivate themselves as part of the tribe. They lose themselves, and then eventually they resent the tribe. So first and foremost, cultivate yourself. Once you cultivate yourself, you're gonna know within a certain percentage of variance who you are as a person, what you believe in, what you're about. And because of that, you're gonna be put into a much better position to audit and determine the tribe that you resonate with and the people that you can connect with at a much deeper level. You'll know where your boundaries are. You'll know what things you're willing to concede on, what things you're not. And then what's going to end up happening is, because you know yourself, and most people don't, like, most people they're so malleable. Like, most people are so malleable that if they find somebody who's not malleable, it just happens that they gravitate. That's both positive and negative, because they're malleable. They probably aren't going to offer a whole lot of challenge to who you are and what you're trying to do and whatever. But there's a high probability that they're going to come and go, because they're still trying to figure out who the fuck they are, and they're still trying to figure out what they believe in and all this other stuff. So when you have that, it's a double-edged sword. But once you figure out the tribe that you fit into and that you resonate the most with, that's when you can start looking stupid easier, because you don't have to worry about, how Steve is going to react to you, making an ass out of yourself, or being a doofus, or, fucking not listening and hurting yourself doing some new thing, right? Because you know that they'd probably do the same shit if it meant learning something new. Versus if you're trying to cultivate your own person to fit the tribe, then the likelihood is you worry about their opinions, you worry about their judgments, you worry if maybe they don't agree necessarily with your sense of humor, or your ideologies, or your pathologies, or your responses to things, or how you problem solve, right? Like, you're going to worry about that shit because you're still trying to assimilate your own identity into the tribe, as opposed to having your identity and figuring out if the tribe assimilates to you. And so like be an ass, like it's okay to look stupid. I don't know. It's been so long since I've worried about that stuff. It's hard for me now to look back, but I know it exists. Like, I know that at some point I was like that. I was exactly like that. Like, I'm an agreeable person by nature. And because I'm an agreeable person by nature, there's a lot of opportunities in the past where I should have held to my convictions. I should have held to my values and my principles and my virtues, and I didn't. And I learned from it. I realized that it was so much fucking worse for me, mentally, emotionally, even in life, burn bridges, whatever, because I went against my own personal value code of ethics, because I was trying to assimilate to a tribe. And so, I don't know. This is what happens when you take a heavily medicated walker and talker and put them on a live feed. I'm just ranting at this point, but I forget the whole point of this fucking thing. I think I was just trying to tell you guys I'm alive and I'm not dead yet. But yeah, the whole coaching thing was an interesting thought-provoking construct that Mr. Donovan put together, and I think it articulated very well for me, just in my own personal space. I've been in it a year that the reality of the world that we live in is instantanealized. Everything is, it's a requirement of the entitled. And I've posted a few things recently that I really didn't like about the way the world is. And it's funny how people respond to it, because they're like, dude, what the fuck happened to the world? What the fuck happened to America? Like, those are general responses to shit. And I'm like, dude, participation trophies. Like, everybody's special. And the reality is that most people fail to realize is that if everything's a high priority, nothing's a high priority. If everything is special, nothing's fucking special. And so there's no longer, and I think this is why I resonate so well with Jack Donovan's books, is because it comes from a place where it doesn't over-romanticize the past, which I see a lot of philosophers doing, a lot of, especially a lot of masculinity groups and coaches doing, is they romanticize this evangelism for bygone ages, right? Man, if I only lived as a Viking, I'd be this fucking badass. Like, if I was around during the Roman times, I would have been this badass. It's like, likelihood? No, probably not. Things were probably not that much different than they are today. We had different societies, different cultural rules. You don't even know how to behave in today's cultural rules, let alone those cultural rules. And so I really like his books because they take a holistic approach to being a man, right? Like he says, it's very well known for his phrase, are you trying to be a good man, or are you trying to be good at being a man? And that's a very distinct difference, because with nice guy mentality, participation trophies, be agreeable so that society can move forward, don't make waves, like that whole concept, that's what creates good men, right? Morally just, nice guys. They're agreeable, they're respectable, they're easily walked all over. They tend to ask permission from their women to wear shirts that they like. They tend to, be cowards and be meek. And the reality is that what that does is that creates tyrants. Psychologically speaking, clinical psychology has come out with profound data that suggests and supports cowardice and morally weak individuals are more likely to become tyrants than strong-willed, iron-fisted, freedom-loving people. Like, it's just the reality of the world, reality of the human condition. Because strength comes from a place of try me. Cowardice comes from a place of, why me? And it's what that does is it cultivates this newfound, once you have power, that you can insulate yourself from everything by just being outwardly offensive, versus the inwardly strong, morally strong individual doesn't care what comes their way, because they're going to hold their ground and have resolve. So they don't need to be insulated. They're the generals that lead from the front. They're the kings that go into battle with their people. They're, that's how that cultivates. Is like strong-willed people do not generally become tyrants. And so looking at the Jack Donovan books, they're very holistic in a it doesn't matter what society you're in. There is a natural order to the world beyond the walls, and the reality is like the instantationalized entitlement that we have as society in today's society comes from the fact that we don't have honor anymore, a standard of conduct that is more global, not globally, but more widespread, as opposed to we have honor systems that are bifurcated and fractured, tribe to tribe to tribe, and that could be as small as 4 people, and that could be as large as thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. But this idea that we have a universal morality is bullshit. There's no such thing as a universal morality, in my opinion. Universal empathy, I think, has really. I think that the idea of the universality of morality, the universality of respect, and entitlement for human life, I think has really driven men specifically to just absolute contentious states, but women as well, because when men fail to deliver, women have to double down, and they usually have to run a duality, which makes it very difficult for them to perform their feminine side as well. And so when you look at what's happening today, is like if you look at what people complain about and what they virtue signal about, right? The reality is that they do not have any perspective on what it is to risk life and limb. They don't have any perspective of not having running water, not having hot water, literally having wolves at the gate who want to eat them, or bears, or cougars, or terrorist cell organizations whose entire process and thought process and ideology is to destroy you and yours. They have no concept of that. And so it's easy to rob men of their utility when you have that level of insulation, because what ends up happening is, over time, that insulation is being misunderstood and misinterpreted as non-existent, as opposed to insulation. And so, I don't really give a shit about gay, straight, trans. I don't really get into that space. I have my own thought processes, to each their own. But the reality is that if your choices, if your development as an individual and a person could not thrive outside the constructs of a civilization, I don't consider that masculine, right? If your idea of masculine is providing through a 9-to-5 job, well, if that job is gone, you've now created a fracture in the scale of your armor as a man. That's very scary for a lot of guys. So it's multifaceted, and if society is the linchpin that keeps all that together, you can see how quickly it can fall away. I mean, look at the last 2 years, right? If you're leveraging society's constructs of what a good man is, this is such a fleeting concept. And so I like the Jack Donovan books because they're so holistic, and they're time proven. And it doesn't matter if society's good, society's bad. It doesn't matter if there's tyranny run rampant or there's freedom. It doesn't matter if there's luxury and decadence or, a cold, harsh winter. His rules and his constructs, they hold water either way. And I think that is very important to the construct and ideologies that people develop in themselves, because let's face it, going back to the original coaches concept, lack of perspective creates poorly planned, poorly executed constructs. And so when they're shallow and they're empty like that, they've never actually been tested. You're going to have this weird skeleton shell, for lack of a better word. I keep repeating it, but of a construct, and it's just going to fall over at the first big wind, right? We see this a lot with meta operator. I call them meta operators. I don't know if that's a real thing, but these guys that they're talk a big game, they're range trained, they're badasses. They're like, man, war ever broke out, I'm fucking ready. But the reality is they haven't actually executed in a real world scenario. They get dojo syndrome. Martial arts, I've been in martial arts my whole life. Like, dojo syndrome is real, where you practice something for so long in a training scenario that you actually lack the capacity to raise your aggression level to actually implement on the battlefield in the real world. And that goes not just for martial arts constructs, that goes for martial arts, that goes for range operators, that goes for businessmen, that goes for coaches. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. If your entire construct is built on a foundation of theoretics, it's going to be shaky at best. And so that's why I like Jack Donovan's work, because it's not just based on his own life. He's a very, very intellectually driven person who bases it on philosophies of bygone ages, and without the romanticism and all of the tactility. And I think that's fucking awesome. So it's getting dark, and I don't know how to fucking close out this rant. So I don't know what I added value here or not, but I appreciate you guys staying on. I'm lightheaded from talking too fucking much. But yeah, I'm alive. Happy Sunday. I hope you guys crush it. Hope you guys crush the week. So I'll be doing more lives and more talking as my voice clears up and things clear up. But I will talk to you guys later. Hope you guys have a great one. I don't know why I did this. I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, I don't know what that is, but hope you guys have a good one.